There are a lot of, if I had to think of one thing that separates what I believe are these two waves that you're describing, the first one would probably be explicit actions like a check-in versus ambient stuff that just runs in the background. I think that the check-in it's a really nice design construct before smartphones were ubiquitous and before we could do background location, and there's something very nice about the explicit nature of it. But I think that there's a lot that you can do with background location that has never before been possible. I mean, if you think about it, we're going to have 7 billion people walking around with these insanely powerful sensors in their pocket that have all of this information about them and who their friends are and what places are nearby and what devices are nearby, and they've all got a GPS and gyroscope and accelerometer and proximity sensors, and we're just building this intelligent mesh layer of sensors on top of the physical world, and it's going to change everything in a big, crazy, profound way. And I remember last year when we started building it, you tell people you're working on location-based social stuff, and they say, oh, you and everyone else. I don't think people realize how early it is. And I don't think they realize what a big deal this is. And so there are all these other differences that you could talk about. Like, I think Foursquare is much more about people to places, and we're much more about people to people. I think there are important differences even within people-to-people location apps. Like Latitude is take my real-time moving dot on a map location and share it with close friends and family at all times. Whereas what we're doing is saying, take a little bit of information about me and share it with the people who are around me right now and no one else. So it's like having that one pager floating above your head. So I think it's hard to compare a lot of these apps as apples to apples because they're different, and small differences have a big impact on how this thing is used and what the privacy expectations should be. So sometimes location is about, sometimes it's about proximity, knowing what people and places are nearby because those are the ones that you would likely be interacting with or visiting. Sometimes it's about mapping the lat long to a place database and understanding more about the person's context. I think location is sort of this new location, and the data associated with it that can be mapped to it is like this new layer of context that can be built into many, many apps. And so it's almost like saying, how should websites use time? It's just, it's just all of a sudden we have this new layer of data that we can put on top of everything else. I think that there are all sorts of social questions around how will people feel about making their location visible to other people. I was having a discussion with a friend the other day about whether we think people will always share their location at all times with other people in 40 years, and what that will mean for society. I think with maps, we're just so in the early days. Like I remember when Google acquired Keyhole and SketchUp, and we would look at it and say, oh, that's kind of interesting. I'm not sure how that really has to do with search. But then you realize it's just maps are this canvas that we can annotate and fill with data about the places nearby and the people nearby. And I think the next generation mapping application will just take into account more and more data sources, right? About the people who are around, about the places who are around and the attributes of those places, about the weather, about traffic jams, about, so many other data sources that we're not even imagining. And they'll just become better and better and better at helping you make decisions based on that context.